Welcome to OK Now What? I'm your host, Kate Gladden, episode 28. This is the show for people who know life doesn't happen to you. Life happens, and the impact it has is up to you. Hey, beautiful people. Welcome back to OK Now What? It's another one of my favorite episodes anytime I get to bring a special guest on. And this one certainly is special, someone I hugely admire. I was lucky enough, we crossed paths back during the good old pandemic days. I remember I was still back in Australia, but Kerry reached out. I'll share more about her in a moment, but it's been a long time coming bringing her onto the show today. Again, this woman is full of wisdom, and even just talking to her, it kind of already calms me. She has that amazing presence. So I know you guys will get a ton out of this week's episode, but without further ado, Kerry Stutzman, welcome to the show.
Aw, thank you for that nice welcome. I'm glad to be here.
Of course, as I said, I can't believe we haven't made this happen sooner, but I didn't want to put words in your mouth or uh, not explain things correctly about your brilliance and what you do. So tell me, you're a family therapist, correct?
I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist, but I call myself a parentologist as well. So I do a lot with parenting, but I do couples therapy, family therapy, and a lot of individual therapy.
That's amazing. And how long have you been in this line of work?
Let's see. I started teaching parenting classes 25 years ago, and I became a therapist in 2007. And I really have a heart and do a lot of work with moms, and women in particular. Just, yeah, because I think life just keeps inviting us to grow, and the struggles that we face as we're going through relationships or whatever life throws at us, I see as like this invitation to find our best selves in that.
I love that. That's why I brought you on the show because that's everything I'm about also. And I think, I'm a few years married now. I should know that off the top of my head. But it's been really interesting. I look back over my 20s and some of the relationships I was in now versus like the relationship I have with my wonderful husband, Nate. And I think had I met him any earlier than I did, I feel like we wouldn't have been ready for each other. There was a lot of work that we had to do on ourselves, I think, before we met. But of course, the work doesn't end once you get married. Even when you are self-aware or, you know, know self-help tools and all that kind of stuff, I think there is such value in having a therapist and continue to have these deeper, more insightful conversations. Given you specialize in family and couples therapy and that, I'm curious for my own selfish interests mainly. Uh, what is like the biggest mistake that you see couples making when it comes to communicating with each other? Like, what's often the biggest source of conflict with that?
I think the biggest mistake is not being aware of patterns and getting stuck in patterns in relationships. And, so many couples who've been together for a while, when they start into an argument in their heads, they're almost like, I always often think of it like second verse, same as the, wait, second verse, same as the first, a little bit louder and a little bit worse. Like this song we used to sing on the bus when I was a kid. Um, and because we just get into ruts and we get really annoyed with our partner if if like their rut can be annoying to us.
Mm.
So can I keep going to explain
Absolutely.
context of that?
I opened the floor to you, the expert now.
So, like, I think that there's this model called emotional brain training developed by Laurel Mellon. And she really teaches that that we all learn to have a default emotion that we go to the most often. So, one person might feel stressed and they go to anger. They're just like irritated about whatever's going on, and that's what they express. The next person when they go to stress, they go to sadness. So the first person is also more likely to struggle with anger management. The person whose default emotion is to go to sadness, they're more likely to feel depressed. The third person who is stressed is likely to go to being anxious, nervous, scared, worried. So they're
Mm-hmm.
more likely to struggle with anxiety. And then the fourth is likely to go to guilt or regret. And so if we look back at each other and at ourselves when we were little, we it always makes sense why we go to the default that we do, right? Like in my family, we just didn't do anger. Like we were very nice, calm people, which means that anger wasn't acceptable. And so it makes sense that I grew up really having disdain for anger and not expressing my anger. But we need all of those emotions,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so then I, of course, married someone. Like if we marry so that we can heal ourselves and heal each other, I, of course, married someone whose default was anger. Well, I had a lot of disdain for anger, and he had a lot of disdain for my worry and my fear. And so we bugged each other. So what underlied his anger would be something tender, and underneath my fear there was anger, but we didn't connect, and we got annoyed by each other's default emotion. And I think that's where couples can get stuck. Parents and their kids can get stuck that way. Couples can get stuck that way. Friends can get stuck that way. And we're like, oh, geez, there you are. You're all mad about everything
Mm-hmm.
without finding what's the tenderness that's under that.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. I always try and keep that in mind in general, like if someone's emotional reaction is kind of out of proportion to what's going on, it's like my thing I try and remember is there's more to it than what I can understand or like what I
Yeah.
see right now, or just trying to be more curious. It's not always easy when your emotional brain sometimes comes online. And it is interesting for me. Yeah, anger isn't I'm definitely more default to anxious, worrier, overthinking type person when I when I'm stressed or reading into things that aren't really quite there. So okay, so that was where was that insight from? The emotional brain training? Is that what you said?
Emotional brain training is the model, and the
Right.
and Laurel
Okay.
Mellon is the developer of this model.
Amazing. Okay. So if you're listening now, this is where you can pause for a moment of kind of reflection, I guess, within yourself and your partner. Like where you kind of feel like whether you're person one, two, three, or four, that the guilt and regret one's interesting. I haven't really heard that as a default response. Is that like a shame thing? Like I've
Yeah.
done something wrong, kind of
Yeah.
self-talk?
Yeah.
Okay.
Self-blame.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
you can always, so I'll walk clients through this. There's a tool to deal with this that we'll talk about where people walk through all the different emotions. And you can always tell what someone's default is because it's the one where they just can go on and on and on and on, right? And
Mm,
so some people may be like, oh, I'm not mad. But that, and I try to get it out. But like some people will just go on and on and on with their guilt and regret
mm.
or with their fear, whatever their default is. It's easy to find that emotion because it's like the brain goes, "Oh, I know how to do this emotion."
Really well. Yeah. Yeah. And I have heard I think it's Joe Dispenza or something like just saying also like our body gets used to holding certain emotional states. So when we try and change it, like wants to be like a thermostat and bring it back to the emotional kind of way that it knows to be. So that's why sometimes when people are working on trying to be more calm or happy, which is a better feeling, it feels weird. Like they don't know how to do that.
Yeah, in EBT, that model, they talk about what fires together wires together.
Hmm.
And so if you're little and you learn that your anger is not welcomed, right? But it's okay if you're sad or scared. Like your parents are more loving, if you're sad or scared. Or like, a lot more boys get socialized to not feel sad or scared. And so they might feel shame about they might be shamed if they express
Mm-hmm.
fear, right? The big boys don't cry, big,
Yeah.
pull it, be brave, that kind of thing. And so then those neural pathways start to fire and be like, do not go to fear. Not safe. Not safe. You're going to get shamed or you're going to get in trouble. And
Mm-hmm.
little girls are a little more likely to be socialized, not to be angry.
Mm-hmm.
And so at a really young age, like pre-verbal even sometimes, or early toddlers, the brain fires over and over, and it like creates this really strong neural pathway of we're not going there. We are
Yeah.
suppressing this emotion, but this other emotion is welcome.
Yeah, we know how to
And
do this
so
one. Yeah.
yeah, so it can be hard to change that pattern, but the good news is they've discovered like this neuroplasticity of the brain.
Mm-hmm.
But we have to rewire it, right? So if we notice ourselves getting in these loops and we want to change them, it takes a lot of repetition of shifting off the super highway of our neural pathway that we're so used to barreling down and being
Mm-hmm.
like, wait, I'm getting off that highway. I'm going on this little footpath and I'm
Yeah.
going to try to feel all of my feelings instead of just my one default feeling.
I love that. Okay, so you did mention like once we begin to recognize and become aware of that pattern in our default wiring, what do we start to practice instead? So that's where I know you've got a great tool that you teach your clients, which we're lucky enough to be getting shared with us today. So feel free to dive into that.
All right, I'm gonna for the people who are watching this on YouTube, or if you're listening and you want to go watch it,
Hmm.
I'm putting it up on the screen to share.
Love
And it'll
that.
also be on my website at kerrystutzman.com/flow of feelings.
Okay.
And it's a tool to use when we are feeling stressed. So it could be a different way, like if we've come home from work and we're really fired up or upset, um, instead of just being like rah, 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 about work, which can be hard for our partners to listen to,
Mm.
people can practice using this skill because it broadens the emotions that we're expressing and it helps us feel calmer because we don't just get on our loop. It can also be really helpful if we're mad at our partner or feel hurt by our partner. Like if we just barrel into a discussion with our partner, like you did this and you did that, and we're really blamey and mad, it's hard for them to hear.
Hmm.
And it's hard for them to do anything except defend themselves.
Yeah.
We're kind of wired to protect ourselves from anger.
Hmm.
So this tool it's called a flow of feelings. It's also called emotional house cleaning, which means you're like dumping the trash. Like the kitchen trash, when it's full, what do we do with it? Like, what do
Throw it
you do
out.
with your, yeah, we throw it out and we don't stand there and pick through everything and touch it. We just like have to dump it
Yeah.
because if we leave our kitchen trash, what happens to it?
Unfortunately, I just had this morning. It gets pretty stinky and overflows.
Right.
So,
And it gets
yeah.
kind of fragile. Like if you poke the bag,
Yeah.
nasty stuff can ooze out. Like trash, kitchen trash, and emotional trash that just sits does us no favors. It gets fermented and rotten and it comes out worse.
Hmm.
So the notion of this is when you feel charged or stress or numb, right? Because some of us learn to go numb when we feel unacceptable emotions.
Mm.
Um, it just festers. And resentment is the like death of spontaneity and passion and romance in a romantic relationship. And
Mm.
so when we stuff it, we become resentful if we don't express it in a healthy way. So
Yeah.
this is a tool to use when we're feeling stressed about something.
Well, I'm excited and I love actually seeing the visuals even helping me as I haven't been lucky enough to have someone like visually share something as they teach it on my podcast yet. So this is great. So make sure you check out the YouTube link. Just look up Okay Now What Kate Gladden. There's a list of all the episodes, and this one will be up there with Kerry, and I'll make sure I share that link in the show notes that you put up where it is on your website.
All right, so let's pick an example for me to demonstrate this. So I'm putting you on the spot here, which I didn't warn you I was going to do, so sorry. Um, um, what would be a topic you think that a couple that might be like maybe something you hear clients talk about that comes up a lot in relationship that could be a point of contention?
Ooh, I feel like sometimes, like with people I've worked with, it's kind of been like he doesn't make time for me or he's not romantic enough, like kind of caught up in work stuff and just kind of don't feel the romance or the that kind of connection that it was. Like it's not like it was in the beginning kind of thing.
Yeah, love that. Love that. Um, and I didn't ask you this about this ahead of time. I can either walk through it and demonstrate it all, or I could teach it and have you do a sample of what some of these feelings might be. What would you like better?
Oh, I can walk through it with you. Like you can teach it and like I'm stepping into that person that's resentful at
Yeah.
her partner. Okay,
Yeah.
I can do that. I'm kidding. So, I thought you were gonna ask Nate. And I'm like, I hate to sound. I was like, I can't remember the last time we butt heads. If you need an example, I feel like I've hit the jackpot with my husband, but I'm not trying to make out like it's perfect land either. So I was just trying to think, but I know in previous relationships, the feeling of not feeling like the romance and that was still there, or just feeling a little like he doesn't understand me sometimes feeling. So yeah, let's dive in.
Okay, awesome. I have that same problem too. I have a hard time thinking of very many conflicts that I have with
Yeah,
my
I know. And
husband.
then people are like, "Oh, so hard to be you in your marriage." And it's like, well, if you'd seen what I'd gone through to get to where I am today, you understand.
Exactly, right. I've had to go through marriage and divorce and all
Mhm.
that to get to
Yeah,
this place. So it's
yeah,
hard fought.
yeah.
And as people are listening, if they're not in a romantic relationship, this also can be helpful to share with a friend. Like if you're going through a hard time and you have a friend who is wanting to support you, instead of just always sharing in the same way, like the mad or the sad or the scared, it can be cool to say, all right, let me do some emotional work and I'm going to share it with you in this format,
Mm.
right? Parents and teenagers, I do this with them in family therapy. I have the kids share with the parents, even tweens, like parents can walk their kids through this.
Hmm.
Partners can do it with each other. So it has a lot of applications. I've even done this on a couple of double dates. Like first double dates where we didn't even know each other very well. We're like, instead of doing the normal chatter, the superficial stuff, let's just talk about in this moment, what do you feel these feelings about? So broad use, but
Love
right now,
it.
I'm going to demonstrate it more in a couple context.
Sure.
Okay. So if you're doing it, like say you're upset about something, you might say to your person, like, I need to share something that I'm upset about. Like, are you in a good place to listen? So we don't just walk up and start dumping this process on someone. They need to know and get into a state to listen because it takes a certain state to really hear somebody and to not interrupt or get triggered. And this is not a conversation, right? Just like taking out the trash, you don't stop and pick through it, you just dump it. This is like an emotional dump. And so the listener's job is just to create a safe space for the person they care about to feel what they're feeling and expressing it. And if
Mhm.
it's a partner and you're mad at them, it's easier for them to tolerate because they might be like, oh boy, I got to hear what she's mad about. This is going to be scary. But underneath that, they're like, oh, there's softer stuff coming. The sad part is coming. The scared part is coming. And the opposite of those, of happy, grateful, secure, and proud, are also coming. So most people can tolerate hearing, like, even if you're mad at me, I can tolerate it because it's not just gonna be rah, 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 and then I bark back at you and then we're off to the races in a fight.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So you make sure it's the right time and the right place. And then you say what the topic is, and you just said, it's your partner's not tending to you
Romantic
or
enough. He's not doing anything for me for Valentine's Day. How dare he? He forgot. He didn't do anything. You don't care about me. That's where I'm
exactly.
going. Everyone,
Perfect.
everyone else, all my friends got a cute, nice dinner out, and I didn't. You didn't even remember it. There we go.
Yeah, right. That's good time sensitive stuff. So now you're going to be the speaker, I'm going to be the listener, and I wouldn't really say anything as you go through this. I would just listen. And my job as the listener is to just hear you and be aware of what I feel while you're listening. Not defending, not explaining, nothing of that sort, but just my goal is to help you feel heard. Period, paragraph, end of story.
Okay. Okay.
There's a time later to discuss if we're going to discuss, but it is not in this. It has to feel really safe.
Mm, It's almost like as you say that, I'm like, yeah, one of the most underrated communication skills in a relationship is actually listening skills, more so than the actual communication piece.
Yeah, because so much so. And listening is so hard because you have to practice the art of restraint.
Mm,
And when we're triggered, words want to squirt out of our mouths, but those words that squirt out of our mouths are almost never productive.
mm,
So this
yeah,
keeps us just listening, and it can feel scary, but by the end, usually people feel more connected.
I love it. So, can you give me an example of how I do? Like, do I say I feel mad because blah blah blah, or what do
Yeah,
I?
so you're gonna go through mad, sad, scared, guilt, regret, and then we're gonna pause for a moment, and then you're gonna do happy, grateful, secure, and proud. And your job is just to say it like you're about 4 or 5 years old. Like, I feel mad about this, and I hate it when that, and it really irks me when this. You just kind of short sentences with emotion.
Okay,
And not you don't tell stories and explain or set context because it's not a flow of thoughts, it's a flow of
love.
feelings. So you try to actually feel what you feel instead of thinking what you feel.
Ooh, I love this. Okay, I got it.
Okay, so I'll start you off and you can just roll from one to the other, or you can just do your mad and then pause and I'll say, okay, and I feel sad that like I can lead you. Or since you can see this handout, you can just roll through the
I'll just
first
roll
four.
through, I think.
Okay,
Okay, ready?
I'm ready.
All right. You know what? I just feel really mad that you can't care enough just to organize something for our relationship. It's not even that hard. Just it just feels like you don't care, and then that makes me sad because I don't feel special to you like I used to, and I just see other couples that look happier than us now, and then I feel scared because what does this mean for our relationship? Are we drifting apart? Are we losing the love? And then maybe I feel a bit of guilt that is there something more I could do to grab your attention more often or be a better wife back to you? That's, I guess, where my guilt comes from. Was that on
That's
track?
yep, that's awesome.
Okay.
It's short and sweet, and it can be super long or it can be just like that.
Okay.
Now, just kind of like take a breath and let it out because it feels like a shift to switch from what you're like those uncomfortable feelings. And
Hmm.
now about the same topic and about the same relationship, I want you to go through what you feel happy and grateful and secure, which is the opposite of fear, or what you trust about yourself,
Hmm.
not about the relationship, not about him, but about yourself. Um, and if you get stuck on that, I can help you. And what you feel proud of yourself for when it comes to this topic.
Okay. This is interesting. So I
It's a
feel
little tricky.
happy. So is the purpose of this to like challenge me to like I feel happy that you didn't is it forcing me to find the upside to the fact that this imaginary husband didn't organize Valentine's Day for me? Is that or like is it about this specific? issue or
Um, yes, or about yourself. It's to really broaden the emotions that you express. So at the same time that you are mad and hurt, you might also feel, I feel happy that even though I'm upset about Valentine's Day, you're really sweet to me, when you bring me coffee every morning.
okay.
Or I'm happy, I'm still happy about our relationship. It's
Okay.
so it's the opposite of those four feelings. And it's easy for us to get stuck on loops of the four uncomfortable ones and share them
Mm,
and not always share that under that there's always something that we're happy about and grateful for. And it might even be in yourself.
mm,
I feel grateful that I'm learning how to take care of myself,
mm.
or we're getting better, in this way in our relationship. It's
Okay.
that
Yeah.
answer that?
Yeah, no, that makes a lot more sense. I didn't know if I had to like if it was like trying to, but as you said, I got to get out of my head and into the emotions more. It's not so much about reframing up here. Okay. So I feel happy though that we do often spend so much time together on the weekends, bonding. I always love that time. I feel grateful that, I do get to have you as my husband and how much you make me laugh when you're not driving me crazy. Um, I feel secure in, you know what, who I am as a woman and what I bring to this relationship and that my heart's always in the right place, even if I don't always get it right. I always try to mean well, and I feel proud of us for sitting down and having this conversation and really talking this through rather than bottling it up or letting it lead to resentment. There we
Love that.
go.
And did you just say proud?
I thought I did, but I might have said another word. I
Maybe
think I
you did, and maybe
oh,
my brain was
no,
already going to how I'm responding to you. Sorry, what
yeah,
did you say proud about?
yeah. I said I think I'm proud of us for sitting down and talking this through and not just bottling it up or blaming each other. So practicing the flow of feelings tool is what I'm proud of us for.
Awesome. Love it. See, look, even in on a podcast, when I'm listening, the listening is an art.
No, I got you. I could see you there making notes and everything. And also, it's not uncommon for me to think I've said something, but said something else. So when we listen back, we'll be able to hear what was really said.
I'm known to do the same thing. So now you're done with your part, and now as the listener, I just do three short little responses. The first is appreciation. The second is what I felt when you shared. And it's not a defense or criticism, it's just like a tender, connecting way that I felt. And then what was the gift of your sharing? Because when someone we care about shares with us, it is truly a gift, right?
Mm,
Because we have the ability to ice each other out and not let each other in. And that is so destructive for a relationship.
mm.
So it's a gift, even if it's uncomfortable to listen to. So I'll just demonstrate the flow of the response, which is
Yeah.
called connecting messages. And I would just say, Kate, thank you so much for sharing how you feel about this and just being willing to be vulnerable and open. I really appreciate it. And when you shared that you felt sad, that maybe you don't, or sad that you don't feel special anymore, I felt so sad that, so if I'm your partner, I felt so sad that me not paying attention to Valentine's Day was, that you feel sad about that. I felt sad too. And when you shared you're scared that we're drifting apart, I felt scared because I don't want us to, I felt scared about us drifting apart too. And then when you shared that you were grateful that I'm your husband and that you love our time on the weekends, I felt happy hearing that. Um, and the gift of your sharing was just getting to know what all came up for you when I'm not thinking about Valentine's Day or paying attention to you. And so I feel closer to you and more connected. So thank you for sharing that.
Wow. Okay. I can see the value of having these prompts and steps to kind of guide you through the conversation so we're not letting, what did you call them? Like our ruts or like our default responses take over, because that turned into a conversation and connecting with each other, as opposed to, I think the most toxic thing we often try and do, and it's because the human brain doesn't like to be wrong. It's dopamine depleting. It's so insistent on needing, like, proving who's right and who's wrong. And so if we can drop that argument and lean into better understanding and expressing, like, I think sometimes, and it's, I don't know if it's just a woman thing, but it's like sometimes you just want to get it off your chest and let it out. And then it's so much easier to just let it go too, and rather than just like stuffing it down.
So, yeah, so much so. We just want to feel truly heard. But
Hmm.
think about how differently it can go if you start to say what you're mad about and I argue with you,
And
right?
interrupt, and
And if
yeah.
you try to convince me that I'm being a jerk, all I can do is defend, right? But when you
Yeah.
do this, by the end, I'm going to understand you and care about you, and I'm going to care that you feel sad that
Hmm.
you don't feel special anymore or worried about our relationship, right? So, to that level, you sharing these emotions is actually a gift, and it's like a bid by you to keep our relationship strong.
Hmm.
So it's a privilege, it's an honor that you're sharing that. But if all
Yeah.
you did was come at me mad, I probably wouldn't be able to hear it that way.
Yeah. Or if honest, like I know I wonder what, I guess it comes under anger, but if anything, like does like, for what I'm trying to say is, when I am mad, sometimes my mad like is like silent treatment mad, or like passive aggressiveness anger, like that. I really, and I don't know if God loved my mum, but she always taught us, if you can't say something nice, don't say anything at all.
I got that one
And
too.
yeah, and so I really have had to learn now as a woman, like when I need to speak up, it's okay to, yeah, let that out, and talk about things, and not be like, just stuff it down. And because that, I think resentment, once you let that breed into a relationship, it really does erode things so quickly. So I was just trying to think of my patterns, and it's like not so much lashing out. I like close up and I'm like
Yeah.
ice queen for a little while. So,
Yeah, and if our partners and we can have compassion for how we got there, right?
mm,
And like your mom, God bless her, didn't mean to teach you to suppress your anger. She was teaching you to be nice, right?
yeah.
Not to be gossipy and not to be catty. And also those things that parents taught us when we were little make us easier to parent,
Mm,
right? An angry kid is hard to parent. And so parents unconsciously, unwittingly can suppress that. And
mm,
so then we either heal that for ourselves or we pass it down to the next generation and go, oh, I actually do have anger and I could be healthy with it.
mm-hmm,
Or like maybe our parents weren't healthy with anger, either too much or too little.
mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
so we can have compassion if we can have compassion for ourselves and our partners. Like anger was scary. And so,
Yeah.
of course, they don't do it well. Or, of course, when we come in hot, then they either retreat or they fight, they go into fight
Mm-hmm.
or flight too. So
Yeah.
those are the patterns that we can get, like to go full circle.
Yeah.
Those are the patterns that keep us disconnected. Whereas this is sort of a change, an interruption to that old pattern that really can lead to so much more connection. But it's vulnerable, right? To share anger when you learn to don't, if you can't see anything nice, don't say anything at all. There
Yeah.
are all these brain cells inside slamming together going, no, no,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah. So true. And I I often tell people, like, I know it can be uncomfortable to like open up and be vulnerable, but it's actually way harder and more uncomfortable if you don't in the long term. Like, I love this saying, if you think having a difficult conversation is hard, wait till you see the results of not having that conversation with each other. Like, then you'll be like, I would have should choose that hard next time. And sometimes we can learn. And I think, there's still times where I don't do it perfectly. And you've got to turn back around the next day and apologize and maybe do this. a little more after the fact because I still think this could be something like, let's just say you do have the meltdown, you lash out the next day. Hey, let's reconnect. Let's try this again and walk it through. And maybe that is when you're a little more reset emotionally, but can still, yeah, maybe find uh, better words. Because I think sometimes when I'm really worked up too, it's like trying to verbalize what I'm feeling can be tough. And like I said, it's probably because my default was the opposite when I was younger.
Yeah. Yes, and we have to honor that whether it's a friend or a partner or whatever, um, that we can that we, I started with the whole thing about asking the other person, are you in a good place to listen? Because
Mm,
I've certainly had times with my husband where I've been like, can I do it? Like, I'm upset. Can I do a flow of feelings? And he'll be like, I can't right now
mm,
because he's charged up. And so he wouldn't be safe in that way because he wouldn't be able to really hear it. And so
mm.
sometimes I have to wait.
Yeah.
And then he'll come back. It's usually the next day. And then it'll be tender and sweet because he's gotten himself to a place where he can say, yes, I have space within me to hear you.
Mm,
And that can be hard for me to wait because if I'm fired up now, like I want to express it because then I'll feel better. And he'll be like, but I can't listen until I feel better first. Until,
yeah.
you know,
Yeah. That's very, very like good point to put out there, like not just insisting, like you've got to also hear and listen. Are they ready to listen? What would you say, like let's just say someone is listening along and she's like, this would be great. I don't think my husband's going to be open to doing something like this. And like what tips do you have to begin to bring some of these like therapy kind of tools and insights into a relationship with with a guy that maybe hasn't been to therapy before or doesn't know much about it?
that's the golden question to so much of what shows up in couples
Yeah.
therapy. Um, um, I think that one of the things, certainly when I bring this up with couples, there's often someone that's kind of like, oh, geez, I don't want to do this. And I think one of the most important messages is you can hear it straight in a connecting way that's going to lead to more closeness, like where your partner is doing their work, emotional work, and sharing with you. Or you can not listen, but then she's going to bottle it up inside, and there's going to be resentment. And
Mm,
that's dangerous for a relationship.
hmm
I try to name that yeah, it might be uncomfortable in the short run. It's like short-term pain for long-term gain and connection.
hmm
Whereas being like, I'm not listening to that might give you the illusion of short-term gain, but there's long-term pain.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I kind of said earlier about like, well, you cannot have this conversation, but wait till you see what happens when you don't. And or like she might not bottle it up, but you're gonna hear it in a completely more blaming, unhealthy kind of way. Like maybe she still does tell you it, but she's not using these tools because you're not going to use, so I can imagine that's a good way, I guess, to position it. And I always say, let's just try it out, give it a few times. I want to tell people don't just try it once. I feel like too many people give it, one thing one time and it maybe didn't go exactly how you'd hoped, and you're like that didn't work. I'm like, no, it's not the tool that does the work. We do the work.
Yeah,
We make it work. So
yeah. So,
yeah.
so two quick tips about that. One is if I've talked my partner or my whoever, friend, whatever, into listening, and I know that they might be, I have to be a little bit tender and recognize that if I go too hard and too heavy on anger in the beginning, that they could well get flooded and triggered from based on their own childhood or their own trauma, right? So I might need to share some of that, but not just rip them a new one, right?
Very
So
true.
we
Yeah.
have to know where what they can tolerate.
Hmm.
So that's the first thing. And the second one is it's super important that when a pair is done doing this, that it doesn't turn into, well, now I'm going to tell you what I really thought about what you said. it can't do that. It needs to be this exercise complete and done. And then if there's discussion, it just has to come later.
Mm-hmm.
Because otherwise like if it blows up afterwards, then people are going to be like, well, that just led to a fight. I'm not doing it again. And it
Mm-hmm.
takes something special in our hearts to like open up and share those things. Like we're open in a vulnerable way. And we want to hold that as the listener, we want to hold that sacred,
Mm.
not come back with our anger. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of restraint that is necessary to do this skill well, to listen and then to not get into it afterwards.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's kind of, rather than trying to win at the argument, it's like, let's win at our relationship, like, and
Ah,
bringing us together. I think that's really what matters most. I often, with clients, when they're kind of really just trying to prove a point and everything, I'm like, okay, 5 years from now, even 1 year from now, 6 months from now, what's going to matter more to you? The problem and trying to like prove you're right about that, or like the person? And they're always like, the person really matters more to me. And I'm like, exactly. So if they matter more 6 months, 1 year from now, make sure they matter more in this moment too, and not do things that really can deteriorate a relationship longer term just to, walk away feeling like, I won that. And then, but at what cost and what did you lose
yeah,
in the
if you won,
process?
then yeah, what did you lose?
Yeah.
And as a therapist, I really have just developed the theory that what we all long for so much in our relationships is to feel seen
Mm.
and known, right? And so this skill gives all of us a chance to let the ones we care about feel seen and known by us. So, it's not our chance to be seen and be heard. It's our chance as the listeners to just create space for our loved one to feel seen. I think we
Mm.
all just want such a witness in our lives.
Yeah.
We don't want to go through it feeling invisible.
Yeah. Yeah. Which honestly, that sounds better than a Valentine's date, if you ask me. Because it's really half the time, we want all these little things because we just want to know we feel appreciated or seen or valued. And really, it is these intimate moments that you can share together, which we're all that actually really does give us that love and security. So I've loved this, and thank you for letting me be a participant. We did some good role playing there on the spot too.
I know.
It was a lot of
Nice way to
fun.
wing it.
Well, again, let people know where they can learn more about your work. I know you've got your website, your social media, all that jazz. So, let people know where they can reach you and find out more.
So the way to find me and to find this resource is at kerrystutzman.com. And the spelling of my name is in the show notes. And that resource is at kerrystutzman.com/flow of feelings. And right now, I don't have a very big presence on social media. When I do, I have my handle is Kerry and Palmer because my son and I work together and we really focus on parent-teen relationships and protecting the mental health of tweens and teens who are going through divorce by
Mm.
working with parents. So my website's really the best place to find me. And I have a weekly email that Palmer and I send out together that's just words of wisdom, generally related to family and to kids and self growth and that sort of thing. So they can always sign up for that on um,
Website.
at kerrystutzman.com.
Okay, perfect. Well, I'll have to get myself on that list. I've missed out on that one. That's it. Definitely jump on, especially your son Palmer. He's awesome. He's a former podcast guest, soon to be dad at this point. So
Hey, day.
yeah, better let you go just in case you do get that magic phone call any minute now. But thank you so much, just for sharing your wisdom and insights. Absolutely love your work and grateful to have you on the show today.
Thank you so much for having me on, and I love your work too.
Hey, you, thanks so much for tuning into this show. If you enjoyed listening along, but you're still thinking, Kate, how do I actually put all of this into practice in my own life with my own situations? I totally get it. This stuff is somewhat simple in theory, but a lot harder in practice, which is why I offer one-on-one personalized life coaching for women just like you who are ready to get unstuck, end the overwhelm, and take back control of their life. That's right, I know that's you. Let's get back to creating a life, body, relationship, and career that you love. Visit kategladden.com for more details on how we can coach together. And for extra inspiration in between episodes, make sure you join me on Instagram. It's at Kate Gladden.